Hi, I'm Daniel, I'm a sleep physician, and if you have insomnia, this channel is for you. Have you ever woken up at 2 a.m. wide awake and thought, I am never going back to sleep again? That is an automatic thought rooted in a belief. Is that belief 100% true, 0% true, or somewhere in the middle? Well, if you start questioning that belief, you may see some cracks and the whole construct can crumble. Hi there, hope you're doing really good, and if you're new to the channel, a big welcome to you. Of course, check this out. I'm reading this book. I'm about maybe 40% through. It's called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Basics and Beyond by Judith Beck. And the reason I'm reading it is that, pardon me again, I had a Martin Reed over, was that a week or 2 weeks ago? And I asked him about, after we had done that episode, I asked him, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety, and I'm not always sure, what the best approach to that is. And he's like, you know what? Automatic thought's a big thing, he said. And we talked a little bit about it, and he recommended this book. And I find a lot of it is good in this book. I've thought about this before, of kind of reading a book and then kind of going through things as I go along. And perhaps this will be the one where I do that. But let's get to the point here. So, learned a couple of things, but I think the really, the most interesting thing, or most helpful thing I've learned so far reading this book is this concept of automatic thought. So, an automatic thought is something, is just what it says. It's a thought that just pops up kind of out of nowhere, and you may not even be aware of the thought. You may only be aware of the feelings that thought elicits. So, in the example I gave you before, you have a person that has a certain belief, and that belief is that if I wake up between 2 and 3 a.m., I'm not gonna fall back asleep, all right? And now that belief triggers these automatic thoughts. If you wake up, see it's 2:30, and then choop, automatic thought, I'm not gonna fall back asleep. And that thought then triggers emotions, such as frustration, maybe anger, disappointment, and those feelings make it harder to sleep in this example. They kind of reinforce that belief. Okay, so that's kind of like a construct that this book talks a lot about. And by the way, this book is not about insomnia per se, just kind of general cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, if you look here, you'll see a figure that I think this is what I want to talk about today. And you may not be able to read it, but you see a kind of circular thing, and it says in there, in the original one, it says, I'm incompetent. Okay, so it's kind of circular, but then on the side you see that it's kind of like an opening that's more like square shaped, and then in the top you see two rectangles, and the first one says difficulty with new computer skills. So basically this is a person that has this belief that they're just incompetent. They just can't get anything right. They're incompetent. So the difficulty with new computer skills, which is like one of those rectangles, it fits into this belief that I'm incompetent. So it easily goes in there. Next one, I have a difficulty applying for a loan. It's hard for me to get a loan. I just can't do it. That fits in. I'm incompetent. It just reinforces it. Those fit. But here's where it gets interesting. Then you see this triangle, which says, I got praise from my boss. So this person actually got praise from their boss, which is evidence to the contrary. It's evidence that they're not incompetent, but that triangle becomes a rectangle. See? Praise from my boss becomes, but I didn't deserve it. So instead of accepting that, well, my boss really likes what I'm doing, I'm not incompetent, it transformed from a triangle to a rectangle. I got praise from my boss, but I really didn't deserve it. It fits into this belief, I'm incompetent. Another one, I was able to choose a health plan. That's a triangle. I was able to do something, but no, it took me a long time. So I wasn't actually competent. I was incompetent. It just fits. So sometimes things that are contradicting the belief are still transformed into things that fit and keep feeding this belief. And then you have the other triangles here. In this example, it says paid bills on time and fixed plumbing problems. They're just kind of rejected, not even processed. So this is kind of a model that explains how when we have certain beliefs, we kind of keep reinforcing them. And I want to apply this to the example I had, which was you wake up at 2 a.m. and you have this belief that you just have this belief that if you wake up between 2 and 3 a.m., you just will not fall back asleep again, right? So if you wake up at 2 and you end up being up all night, well, that fits. It's just like, yep, that's proof that it's true, it's a belief. But if you actually fall back asleep, oftentimes, and I hear people do this all the time, say, yeah, I did fall asleep that time, but it was because I took some melatonin. Or, but it was because I was up all night the previous night. Like, what's actually contradicting the core belief is not accepted. It's transformed into something that will feed the belief. And I think I didn't come up with a great example of this, but there could be other instances where you actually did fall asleep, but just maybe you just don't remember it, or you just discount it for no particular reason, like in this example. Now, the most important thing here, I think, learning point here is this, that try to question beliefs you have. Like, I can't sleep more than so many hours, or I'm never able to fall back asleep if I woken up, or I'm a terrible sleeper, or things of that nature. If you have those beliefs, try to find and accept evidence to the contrary. Because if you find that, you know what, you're really examining something like, you know what, I actually fell asleep after about an hour last week, then you can start kind of creating cracks in this belief, you know? And the more cracks, the more unstable this belief becomes, and it can all crumble if you find enough evidence to the contrary. So please consider this, and I hope you'll find this helpful, and I'll share more things as I go forward in this book. And finally, two things actually. Always super thankful for comments and emails as well. That is super, super helpful. And I have mentioned this app I've been working on for about a year and a half, Bedtime with a Y. It's available for Apple or iOS products right now. If you want unlimited access to myself, I am there, and you can download it, and you can just send me messages back and forth. It's free for 2 weeks. And by the way, there are no secrets in this app. Like, all the stuff that I'm sharing here are in the app, but more, a little more structured, and 2 weeks are free, and after that it becomes a subscription. But check it out, and if you want to do me a huge favor, if you may not need it, you may just need the material that's here, but if you have a friend or somebody else that is like struggling with sleep and so forth, then direct them here or to this app. And by the way, if you're on Android, it is coming to Android as well. So with that said, super nice of you tuning in, and I shall be back tomorrow. Until then, take it easy.